And today we are doing chapter 23. One of my favorite chapters is chapter 23. So when you're the teacher, you get to pick, right? So I really thought chapter 123 was definitely what I wanted to start with, and we did. And we did that. And now we get to do another chapter that I draw much strength and comfort from, which is chapter 23. I'll tell you the story behind it, and then I'll read it. So chapter 23 was composed by King David. He was not king at this point. He was fleeing from Saul, King Saul, and who unfortunately had tremendous suspicions against David that were riled up by some jealous people. And he had to literally flee for his life. Literally, Saul thought he was a rebel, and a rebel, according to the laws of Torah, needs to be killed. And he's a rebel. He needs to be killed. So David was fleeing for his life. And he was at this point in a very desolate forest. Nothing to eat, nothing to drink. He almost died. The forest is called Ya'ar Cheres. Ya'ar means a forest, and Cheres means very parched and dry. Like Cheres is literally pottery, like fake pottery. So it's a dry, parched land, a forest, but totally dry and parched. And David said, God, I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. I'm almost dead, but I'm trusting you. And God made a tremendous miracle. And he soaked the dry forest, it says, with moisture from the flavors, from the moistness of the world to come, which made this dry, parched land have grass and leaves that became very edible, very succulent and very edible. And he ate them. He ate the grass, he ate the leaves, and he survived. He trusted in God, and God came through, even when it seemed his chance of survival was non-existent. And after that, David composed this psalm expressing this inspiration that God supports and God nourishes at all times. And just like for the Jewish people, and there's a lot of references here, we're not going to really explain every detail, but a lot of references that this psalm is referring to the Jews in the desert. We had 3 million people in a desert for 40 years, and God provided. And the Jewish people thrived during that time. The Jewish people, it was a very, very, very amazing existence, obviously, but God provided. And sometimes I was thinking recently, I was somehow reading some biographies, autobiographies from the Holocaust. And the more you study or read these, the more you get it that anyone who survived the tragedy is the 6 million that didn't. But anyone who survived, that person experienced miracle after miracle after miracle. It was a situation, doesn't make sense if you were hiding, if you pretended you were an Aryan, if you went through the concentration camps. Anyone. There was no, for sure in that situation, there was nothing. Nothing made sense that anyone could survive any of these situations. Of course, that concentration camp, how much more so in the death march, and every single person experienced miracle after miracle after miracle. Only way. So let's read this psalm, which actually the custom is, it's not my custom, but some Jews have the custom to say this psalm between when they wash for bread and when they make the blessing and eat the bread. So they're linking this psalm to the very bread they eat. That's the custom. It's recorded in the Mishnah Brura. The Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, second famous Kabbalist of all times, he says that this psalm, it's a very short psalm, it's 6 verses, is comprised of 57 words. And 57 is numerical value of, in Hebrew, it's zan, which means to nourish. And it has 227 letters, which is numerical value of bracha, of blessing. Now, okay, sometimes people look at numerical values as, cute little things. But that's not true, as we've discussed. Numerical values are serious expressions of the godly life flow, because all of creation is through words, through letters. So if it's a numerical value of the word sustain, nourish, that's the energy of this psalm. If it's the number of letters as the word for blessing, that's the energy of this psalm. And therefore the Arizal says that whoever says this psalm, well, that's easy, and lives by its message, that's the harder part, will always be blessed with ample sustenance. So there's a very, very strong connection of this psalm to trusting God, and specifically in matters of livelihood. So I'm going to read it for you now in English. As I read the words, you could think of the meanings. And again, there's many deep, deep, deep layers and layers and layers of meanings. And just as I said before with Psalm 123, to me, the words themselves are so powerful for me, they're so resonating. We'll add some ideas, but honestly, the words themselves, I think, speak for themselves. And this psalm I say many times a day for many different needs, because it really expresses trust of God in each issue. So Psalm 23, if anyone's looking inside, again, a short psalm of 6 verses and very, very, very powerful. A song to David. God is my shepherd, I shall not want, I shall not lack. In the lush pastures, he brings me to lie down. By the tranquil waters, he guides me. He restores my soul. He guides me on the paths of justice for the sake of his name. Even when I go in the valley of death, of darkness, I fear no evil because you, God, are with me. Your rod and your staff, they are my comfort. You will arrange before me a table in front of my enemies. You will anoint my head with oil. My cup flows over. Only good and kindness shall pursue me all the days of my life, which is an amazing thing considering what David went through in his life. And I will dwell in the house of God forever, for long days. This is a psalm, and as I said, personally, those words are just so powerful to me, so meaningful to me. I'm just like, they really resonate. They really make me feel like, yes, this is it. We trust in God, and God comes through. That is exactly the simple message. We'll go through some details, but that's the message. Trust in God. Trust in God for every issue. God comes through. Has anyone here seen this? Like a time when they went through a situation that seemed there was no solution, there was no hope, there was no way to turn this around, no possibility for it to get better, and then somehow it was resolved. If you were in such a situation, did you connect it to God? Did you recognize God was there for you as the source of this salvation? In King David's case, it was pretty obvious. He's in basically a desert area. He's literally, the sages said, he almost died from deprivation, from lack of food and water, and God suddenly made it edible. He suddenly made this inedible, hostile environment full of edible plants that he could eat and survive. So he knew it was God. But we also go through situations in our life, maybe not as seemingly dramatic, but also where like, how will this be resolved? This is not resolvable. And then somehow it gets resolved. So since it's not as dramatic, maybe we forget. Or maybe we remember, it wasn't this happened to work out and this happened to work out. No, it was God. So I definitely have been through many in my life, many situations that seem unresolvable. Like I don't even have a creative imagination to like give God a few tips on what to do. And then like it works out. God comes through. Anyone else been in such a situation and realized, saw the connection, knew it was from God? Well, I think most of us have been in situations like that, but maybe not. Now, I'm not wishing that anyone should be in a hard situation. Maybe not. Or maybe you're saying, yeah, I was, and I didn't really see the resolution. So I hope you were in the situation. If you were, I hope you saw the resolution, and I hope you realized it was coming from God. And that's really the message of this psalm. Trust God. He comes through. Which from our end, in terms of work, is the work of trusting, and then the work of recognizing that he's the one coming through. Because sometimes you can be in a hard situation, we trust in God, and then, it just sort of worked out. No. And then God came through. All right, so let's read it verse by verse. I'm not going to actually do all the verses, just some of the verses we're going to talk about. So the first verse, a song to David, God is my shepherd, I shall not want. So this metaphor of God as a shepherd is definitely something that we see in scriptures. Because of course, that idea of a shepherd, especially in ancient times, was definitely the model of the person who's providing all needs. As the shepherd tends all the needs of his flock, the shepherd is totally the source of support of his flock. And that's God. The Targum says that this refers to when the Jews were in the wilderness, because here we were and it was very obvious that God was our shepherd, because we're like walking on the clouds, our clothes are born with us and then grow with us, our shoes grow with us, our food is coming from heaven, the water comes from a rock. On every level of anything we needed, God was there. And the truth is, so too now. We're not walking on clouds. We have to do laundry. We have to go on Amazon or somewhere and shop. We have to go shopping, and we have to earn money to be able to go shopping, and then we have to cook the food, and then we have to serve it, and then we have to clean up after it. So we have to do a lot of things they didn't have to do. But guess what? It's the same relationship. Just as in the desert, where it was so obvious that God is taking care of every physical need, because they were in a desert, there was no other option. Obviously, it was God in very, very miraculous ways. In our life, it doesn't seem as miraculous. It might not seem miraculous at all, but it's God. This is really the vision we want to have, that God as the provider, that God as the shepherd, that all my needs are literally being taken care of from him and by him, which means here two things. I want to have a vision that I'm always taken care of, meaning just as the shepherd takes care of all the needs of his flock, and he's not going to let them be hungry, and he's not going to let them not have the right shade, and he's not going to let them not have water. So I want to feel all my needs are taken care of. My needs are met. I have no lacks, like David said. God is my shepherd, I shall not lack. I have no lacks. Anything I need, God takes care of. That's part one. And the second part is God is the one taking care. A person could feel, yeah, I'm taken care of. My life is fine. I mean, we could always want more, of course, because we're human. My life is good. My life is fine. I can't even think of anything more I'd want. It's all good. And it's all him. So again, the message of the verse, God is my shepherd. I shall not lack. I shall not want. No, your needs are taken care of. No, they are taken care of by God. So it says that when God is taking care of our needs, we have to do our end of appreciating what we receive and know our needs are taken care of. King David dedicated this psalm to those who serve God and who aren't into the stuff of this world, but they're happy. Not like, oh, we're not in stuff of this world, so we suffer and who cares? No, they're happy in whatever they have, meaning they appreciate the simple things of their life. That's what Ibn Ezra explains us. They appreciate the simple things they have, and they're not looking for fancy things, extravagant things, high-class things. Oh, then I would enjoy if I had that outfit, purse, iPhone. They don't have it, they don't need it. But it's not like they feel like, okay, whatever, I'm not supposed to enjoy life, so I don't have, but whatever. No, God's taking care of all my needs. And I have everything I need, and I appreciate and enjoy everything I have. What I have, I enjoy. What I have is great, is good. It's simple, and it's good. It's such a beautiful vision. Imagine just gaining pleasure from the simple stuff we have instead of wasting energy on the elaborate stuff that we don't have. Do you think that when people are younger, this is more natural to them? Do you think like younger children more naturally appreciate the simple things of life, but then life conditions them to want more? Or no, it's just nature. Some people just have a nature that they appreciate things, or were trained and were given a good education to appreciate things, and some people don't. It's not their nature, it's not how they were trained. What do you think about this?
I think partially it is nature. We all have different nature, but at the same time, I believe that it's the opposite. With age, we understand that we don't need much to be happy and appreciate what we have, even if it's not a lot.
So do you think it's the opposite, that children are by nature not satisfied with things? Or you're saying, no, a child could be or can't be, it depends on their nature. And then as people grow older, they appreciate more.
I think younger people, I don't know what you mean child, but younger people usually want more.
Because I was thinking, like, let's say my children, when they were younger, and they had very simple things. They're in a very small school with a very small group of friends. The summers were very simple activities, and they were very happy. And I felt like life hadn't taught them, like, no, this isn't good enough. And then, like, sometimes as you progress in life, you're taught, no, you need more. You need bigger things to be happy. You can't be happy from small things. But I totally respect and appreciate what you're saying, and I hear that as a person gets older, we don't mean like from a teenager to a 20, 30-year-old, but as you're getting older in life, you sort of appreciate life and you don't as much need the things of life to appreciate. And what you have, you appreciate. I hear that. And you're saying also you think it's a nature. Some people can have more pleasure and some people just are more, I need, I must have, I want. I think our society creates and nurtures a lot of this sense of I need, I must have, and I want. I think it's deliberate design to make us a very commercial society. So some people make a lot of money off of us. But it is probably, I think you're right also. Definitely some people definitely have that nature. Someone else, Leah, you were going to comment?
It all depends on your surroundings, your friends, your circle. And, if you're surrounded with modest people, so you also have different priorities in your life, so and kids they usually want more because it's competition and they're not so wise and more spoiled. Of course, it depends on financial situation of the family, but they're very competitive and they want to have what others have. I'm just surprised that many adults also want acting the same way, but it depends on the circle.
So you're saying, like Rachel said, that you think as people mature or age, they see it more clearly. And you brought out an interesting point. You said it's the environment, and when they're surrounded by modest people, their wants are less. I think that's really a beautiful way to phrase it because I guess the most impactful thing is the home. Hopefully, the
Yeah.
family, the parents, the siblings, or the neighbors, the friends, the relatives. And when you're surrounded by people that don't have a lot and are happy with it, they're happy in their life. Yes, I believe you're 100% correct. People grow up to be happy with less. And if people are, some people grow up with little and they're surrounded by people that have very little and are very unhappy that they have very little. So that doesn't inculcate this good trait. So if somebody is surrounded by people that either by choice or, as you're saying, by finances, don't have a lot and are happy, that's really a gift because then someone grows up saying, I could be happy with little because that's what I saw when I was growing up. They didn't have a lot and they were happy. I think that's a key point, and that's probably a much louder message than anything we might want to frontally tell children is just that atmosphere of we're happy. We don't have a lot. We're happy. And I think that's the point King David is saying here, according to some commentators, that you take pleasure in having a little. You don't need a lot. Whatever you have, you're happy with. And that would pass it on further. Any other thoughts on this?
I just wanted to say, in secular society, which I am, we used to admire people for their achievement, career, accomplishment, and career-wise. But when you move towards Torah observancy, your values change completely, and we admire completely different achievements, less material and more spiritual.
So you're saying for someone to really have this value, it's very hard if they don't have a religious commitment to God, because in the secular world, it's very hard to not be enmeshed in secular achievements. Well, I was going to ask, how do you think you move? Because this is such a wonderful way to live, right? I mean, this is, we all would want to live, I think. How do you move to that? And what you're saying, Rivka, is you move to that by more and more valuing God and spirituality and God's service. And then automatically the other stuff is just not as important.
Yes, I guess.
Anyone else? Any other ideas or nuances on this idea of how you would move? How would you move yourself, or how would you move children? But maybe we're talking about ourselves or other people. How you move to value the simple things, to value them, to appreciate the simple things, and not to feel lacking if you don't have more than the simple thing. Any other thoughts on that? So Rivka said she feels the more someone has a strong connection to God, it's just a natural shift in priorities. Anyone else? Any other ideas along those lines, or any other thoughts? I mean, I think I appreciate what Rivka's saying, and I hear it, but I also think, like Rachel said, it definitely is sort of also part of one's nature. And of course, Well, Leah said it depends a lot on your environment. Both, I think environment means both how you were raised and currently what type of people are around you. So it's probably a mesh of all of these that really creates a person who's happy with what they have, not looking for more, not needing more, appreciating what they have. And as Rivka's saying, the more you know it's all from God, obviously, the easier it is to be in that state. Anyone else? Okay, so let us continue. Let's go to verse 4. Even when I go in the valley of death, I fear no evil, because you, God, are with me. Your stick and your staff, they are my comfort. So I fear no evil. That's great to not fear. It's told of a very devout person who was once found sleeping alone in the middle of a very barren area that seemingly was not safe. There was more like a wilderness, and there was wild animals, predators, and he was sleeping peacefully. And they said to him, aren't you afraid of the wild animals? And he said, I'm so ashamed before God. I'm not afraid of anything else in the world. The only thing I fear is God. And we're told this very famously about the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, whose father passed away at a very young age. He was born to his parents when they were very, very, very old, and they passed away when he was quite young. And the Baal Shem Tov would say what he was taught by his father as a young child. I think he was maybe 3 or 2 when his father passed away. And he said his father taught him, never fear man. We fear God. If you fear God, you don't fear man. It says that Baal Shem Tov as a young child also would go into the forest and fearless. He fears God. He doesn't fear man. David's heart, when David says this to us, I will fear no evil, David's heart was so full of fear of God, there was no room for fear of anything else. I think it's an amazing point to think about, not fearing evil. Because we could have a lot of fear. And I mean, nowadays we live in a world where evil has a lot of heads, a lot of voices, seemingly a lot of support, a lot of things in our world on many, many, many levels. Evil could mean many different things to many different people. But fear is, normal. Fear is how we respond to scary things. And David is saying, if I fear God, if I'm focused on God, and that's my reality, there's no room to fear anything else. How can I fear anything else? What is anything else? I mean, it's God's world. He runs the world. We should try to let him run his world and not think we're taking over. If I fear God, I understand everything else in the world is subservient to him. Even things that seem to be defiant, or things that seem to be not from a godly space. But however not godly they are, they're all subservient to God. God runs everything. It's all coming from him. In other words, even if people make very bad choices, it's still God's world. Everything that's happening is exactly, precisely his plan, detail by detail by detail. So I'm going to fear the puppets, even if the puppets are, I made my own choice. I mean, they're not thinking they don't think they're robots. They're making choices and making really bad choices. True, they're making choices. True, they're making bad choices. And God is pulling every single string. So people, the world, nature, whatever it is, the economy, stability, security, it's all coming from God. So is fear an emotion I'm supposed to have? Yeah, I'm supposed to fear God and trust that God is running his world. Do you see this as your fear of God grows? Your fear of man, or maybe it's not man, maybe it's life, lessens? You less fear what people could do to you or what life could do to you as you fear God more? Or you don't see a relationship between those two things?
Hi.
Hi, Chava. So nice that you're back and on.
Yes. Good to be back. So to answer your question, I see the more I trust God, the less I fear. So for me, it's trust in God. That's my connection.
Right. So you're not envisioning it. The truth is, we say our generation is a generation that doesn't do too well with the word fear. So do we fear God? But there is a concept of fearing God, but I hear what you're saying, and I think it's a very valid point. The more you trust God, which is definitely the overarching theme of this entire psalm, the more you trust God, the less you're going to fear anything in the world, because for exactly the same reason I said, it's all in God's hands.
Right. Because if it is just fear, even fear of God, then evil that happens, right, it's also part of the God creation. So if it is fear, it can create, theoretical, I think, it can create more fear. If you're God, you can fear evil, you can fear punishment. So fear on its own can like create more fear. But for me, what works for me, when I trust God, that everything what God does is good, that helps me to reduce my fear of evil.
I think that is very true, and that's definitely the way we go. And I totally hear what you're saying, that if a person's in a fear space,
Mm-hmm.
then it could extend to a lot of things. And the truth is, as I'm saying, for our generation, we just, the concept of fear doesn't work very well for us. It really doesn't. I mean that very seriously. It really doesn't. It's really hard for us to get to the space of a godlike, a fear of God, but a true fear, not coming from an unhealthy place, really coming from a relationship with God and understanding, not like I'm scared I'm going to get punished. I don't think King David was walking around being scared he's going to get punished. But maybe it's a sense of God's presence. Maybe awe is a better word, that he really felt in the presence of God. And he felt, I think how fear acts out in a person that has true godly fear means nullified. He felt nullified in front of God. And as he was nullified in front of God, the world was meaningless. But I totally respect what you said, and I think it's a very appropriate thing. And I think for most of us, that is. And it's definitely thematic to what we're saying here. As we trust, the rest of the world's not so scary. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on this?
Girls,
Yes.
on this topic, I agree with that, and I can think this way up until I imagine people being hostages in the hands of these animals, that we are still in bodies, and that just crosses out everything that I believe before that. Because this, I think this fear overcomes everything. Just the thought of that makes me feel awful.
I hear what you're saying. You're saying that it's, but the truth is it that you're fearing the evil, or you just feel awful that they're in this situation? Are you giving the evil the power? Fearing evil gives evil power. Terrorists want us to fear. That's the concept. That's why they're called terrorists. They want to terrorize. They want us to walk around scared. That's their goal. So when we fear, they have power. They have power in the most psychological sense, in the most physical sense, and also spiritually. Literally, when we fear evil, we give it power. It's the spiritual dynamics. If I'm fearing something, it can feed off of me. So if I fear evil, or if I fear Hamas, or if I fear what's happening with the hostages, I'm allowing my powers to be usurped and to be sucked in by this evil. So I totally hear what you're saying, and maybe the change in your head could be scream at God, meaning it's all him, and every one of those hostages is his only child. Every Jew is God's only child. And God, what are you doing that you're letting your only child be in this situation? It's you. You have the power, and again, I'll do more for you. I'll say more psalms. I'll give more charity. I'll be nice to people that's hard for me to be nice to. Whatever you want me to do, we'll do it. And God, get them out. So I think I understand what you're saying, And I think it's a very, like, it's a very dangerous road of fearing evil, especially this evil, which so much wants us to fear. This is not at all the same thing by a million miles, but my daughter's iPhone was stolen. And she spoke to the Apple and the police, whatever, the banks, everything. And if she has two choices. She could wipe away her phone so nobody could get her personal data, but then she has no hope of ever getting it back either. Or she could just lock her phone, and Apple's guaranteeing her that she has the newest iPhone they can't break into. She has no way, unfortunately, the way it's configured, to keep her phone locked and erase the data on it somehow. I don't know why Apple hasn't figured that out. So she can't erase her data, but she can lock it, and she just has a message when you open up her phone. I don't know if it says lost or stolen, and her number. And I, of course, told her to do that. Trust God. As long as you still have given him away, it could come back to you. If you wipe it clean, you're not giving him away for it to come back, besides a nature-breaking miracle. This is a bit nature-breaking, but still. And okay, fine. So she did that. The fear is, well, if they break it open, and then they'll access her personal data and, obviously her financial data. She did whatever precaution she could take while still not being able to delete it from her Apple information. And then she got like a few messages, like, like nice message, like, we have your phone. We're not the thieves. We just resell this for the thieves. And we just are concerned because your personal data is on here, and whoever buys it's going to access your information. So you should really wipe it away. No, the point being, sorry if I didn't clarify the statement, the way it's locked, nobody can use it. Meaning not only can nobody use it as a phone, nobody can even use it as an internet device. So it's completely useless to these thieves. So they sent her a few polite, we're really concerned for your safety messages that she ignored. And then they sent her really like scary messages, like, I wouldn't repeat what they said, what we're going to do to you if you don't wipe away your phone, which I also told her to ignore. But this happened like yesterday. So it's in my head as an example of, like, these were really ferocious, violent, evil messages. We kill people for less than a cell phone. And I mean, horrible stuff they wrote. And it's like, it's easy to fear because these people are really evil. And then you say, wait, God, it's all you. There's only you. There's nothing but you. So obviously this is a very simple little situation. But the same way we can see it in this simple situation is true for every other situation. Nobody has any power. Nobody has any power. The only power is God. The only power is God. We trust him, we praise him. If you want to say we blame him, you could say we blame him. As believers, we blame him, not as doubters, as total believers. We totally believe, and God, you need to free those hostages. How can I say blame? How can I demand? Because that's what God wants us to do. If it's my own suffering, I have to look and see what I've done wrong. If it's not my own suffering, I can turn to God and demand and blame and say, God, we know you've done this. I remind him every day one part of our prayers is the song the Jews sang by the splitting of the sea. And every day, basically, as I say it, I say, God, you did it before, you can do it again. You did it. You did it. You know how to do it. You can do it. There's no excuse. You got to do it. I feel very free to tell him exactly what to do because I know that's what I'm supposed to do. And it's so true. I saw this beautiful thing in my phone, a little snippet, that on the same Sabbath that 4 hostages were freed, there were 4 classes in Israel, 4 classes of children, not religious children, who before the Sabbath, I don't know the backstory, I didn't see enough details to tell you why, each of those classes of boys committed to keep the Sabbath, to keep the Shabbos. And you see these children being interviewed, and each one by one, I mean, it's in Hebrew, says, I never keep the Sabbath, my family doesn't keep the Sabbath, I don't get each one. And Yeah, I kept it. This one Shabbos, this one Sabbath, I kept it. It was such a beautiful. Now again, that doesn't negate everything all of us have been doing, but it was such a sense of like, wow. It was just like 4 classes of children, beautiful, pure Jewish children, kept the Shabbos the exact day 4 hostages were released. And so many other correlations with the release of every one of those hostages. So we scream, we're supposed to scream, it hurts. We cry, we demand, and we add more. And we say, God, it's all in your hands. It's in your hands. I can't fear evil. I can't empower evil, and fearing evil empowers evil. It's in your hands. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on this?
What I fear is about unknown. It's just like you don't know what will happen to you, your family. And it's not like, because we're living in the safe places, nothing going on in the country. Of course, everything could happen to you, but the possibility is really small. But sickness and I'm talking about serious, thing. This is really scaring me, and there's so many stories around and examples, and I don't know how people dealing with this, it just scares me. And of course, worry, it's not a fear, but it's worry about your children, And of course, I mean, I understand whatever happened, it's happened, but you're afraid of that. Your life could change in a split of a second.
Yes, and there's many stories. I felt so bad. I was speaking last night to a woman I'm very close to. She's the Chabad Shlucha, Chabad emissary in the Philippines. And she was telling me of some Israeli in her country who had lent a lot of money to a very famous, well-connected Filipino, and he went to get the money back, and I don't know all the details. I don't know if anyone does, but the Filipino wouldn't give him the money back, and now the man's missing. And everyone's very scared. And the police aren't doing anything because this Filipino is very well connected. This is the Philippines, very well connected to the police. And it's such a sense of like, I don't know, I was so affected by this last night. Like, here's this man, I don't know him at all. I don't know his name, or I do have his name somewhere to say prayers for him, but what did he do? He made a mistake. He lent someone a lot of money, for whatever reason. I don't know the backstory of why he had a lot of money and why he lent a lot of money. And who knows? And it's like, where do you go with that? You just go back to God. And I think what Chava said is really the answer in every situation. Chava said, because we're saying here, fearing God versus fearing man, and she's saying trusting God versus fearing man. And the more she trusts God, the less she fears. And I hear what you're saying, Leah. What you're saying is it's not man specifically. It's anything could happen, and sometimes does. And there's so many possibilities. Our brain can make us crazy. And I really think that's what Chava said. That just the more we really view God as real and view God as the only power, the only source of everything, and really say, and he's good, and he loves me, and trust. And then a person could say, well, I don't know, I see a lot of people suffering, and if it's all God and it's all good, why do I see so many people suffering? And that's one could say that. That's a very easy thing to say. But personally, we just have to say, I don't know what else is. There's so, just like sometimes in my own life, I could feel, oh, God gets a really bad rap because nobody knows my life but me. But someone could look and say, oh, but nobody knows what's really going on but me. And I probably don't really know everything going on in my life. So too with the whole world. When we look at the world and we see what's going on, and we could be like, where do we see God's goodness? But we don't know the whole story. We don't know the story. We don't know the goodness. We don't know the actions. We don't know the story. But for ourselves, the more we could say, okay, God, I just want to envision you as more loving and more caring than my parents. My parents' love, but your love is infinite. My parents' resources were limited. Yours are infinite. My parents' awareness of what was going on in my life is limited. Yours is infinite. So with your infinite awareness, your infinite resources, and your infinite love, I trust. Does that mean I see everything as perfectly good? I know it's from you, and therefore, yes. Even the things that are hard to understand that way. This sort of relates to the last phrase in this verse. So we're just going to put it in. King David said something very interesting. Your stick, your rod, and your staff, they comfort me. So what did he mean here? Your stick and your staff. And Rashi says the stick means the stick of afflictions, the stick of suffering. The staff means leaning on you, leaning on my trust in you, leaning on your trust, leaning on your kindness. And both of them together comfort me. Meaning to say, we understand that we want to lean on God and we trust God, and that brings us comfort. I mean, yes, of course. That was Chava's point, and it's, of course, very true. But King David is saying more than that. And I'm saying this, explaining this, but I think it references back to what I was just saying with Leah. Your stick is also part of the comfort, meaning the stick is a stick. You know, things I don't necessarily want. But King David was saying, when I'm going through hard things, I take comfort. I know it's you, and I know you're doing it for my best. Maybe I sinned, and you're cleansing me of my sins. Whatever it is. The stick, the suffering, it's you. The things that are obviously supporting me, it's you. Both of them together give me comfort, meaning David is reframing suffering, pain, hard things as an expression of God's kindness. It's a really healthy, positive life when we can look at everything. Of course, we just want the staff. We don't want the stick. I just want the staff. I do not want the stick. But when the stick is also part of the picture, it doesn't mean we stop trusting God. It doesn't mean God flaked out on us. It's a really healthy, positive life vision to look at everything, including the stick, as God's kindness. It's God, and it's a stick, and it's God's kindness. And we don't want the stick, we want the staff. But it's the more I trust, the more I know it's all God, the more I can reframe things, even the stick, as God's kindness. All right, we will stop here. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for participating. And we should only see the staff. And going back to what Rachel said, I hope we should see more and more miracles, more and more of just God, you do it. I don't have to write the script for you. My script would not be good enough. But just you do it, and every single one of those people, your only precious children, should have miraculous salvation, and we want that now.